explain what's going on.
1 minute mark, yeah.
So we're live again.
Okay, on Facebook right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're gonna have to move into the TV in a second. Remember to get the other music going.
Now I will tell you the answer to my question. It is this. The party seeks power entirely for its own sake. We are not interested in the good of others. We are interested solely in power. Pure power. What pure power means you will understand presently. We are different from the oligarchies of the past, and we know what we are doing. All the others, even those who resembled ourselves, were cowards and hypocrites. The German Nazis and the Russian communists came very close to us in their methods, but they never had the courage to recognize their own motives. They pretended, perhaps they even believed, that they had seized power unwillingly and for a limited time, and that just around the corner there lay a paradise where human beings would be free and equal. We are not like that. We know that no one ever seizes power with the intention of relinquishing it. Power is not a means, it is an end. One does not establish a dictatorship in order to safeguard a revolution. One makes the revolution in order to establish the dictatorship. The object of persecution is persecution. The object of torture is torture. The object of power is power. Now you begin to understand me. George Orwell, 1984.
We are truly being persecuted right now. Those of you who are on Facebook, it's going to be hard for you to understand what's going on. We're literally our image is coming in backwards right now. We're having to use an iPad because they've actually pulled our ability to use our cameras now, and we also can't stream to YouTube. So we're asking you, they've put a cap to where we have about 250 subscribers to YouTube, and now they're shutting down anyone who doesn't have at least 1,000 viewers or subscribers on their YouTube. They will not allow you to stream anymore. They've also shut down our stream channel on Facebook, and the only way we can actually get through right now, we've tried like 100 different ways, is through an actual iPad right now. So I don't know how long they're going to be with us as far as letting us get this run around or this go around. So what we need you to do is subscribe to our actual YouTube channel. I'm going to pull that up, Caleb.
All right, so let's do our introduction, right?
Here's the thing, though. We got to do this business. This is actually not an episode like normal. So there's going to be hiccups, and I don't frankly care because I'm mad right now. We're going to beat them. So the channel for you to subscribe to is Church and State Christian Political Talk Show. Okay, so if you look up Church and State Christian Political Talk Show on YouTube and subscribe, please do it. Make it a priority. Even if you don't use YouTube as a platform, we got to have a means to stream somehow, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. We're going to, if we have to, keep using an iPad to stream for a little while until we're on the normal. So the good news is we're streaming with you live right now, but I'm just telling you, they're putting the pinch down of censorship on people aggressively to where I'm literally upset. I'm not supposed to be upset as a pastor. And the audio right now for you on Facebook is horrible because you're having to hear through an iPad. We can't connect into our normal broadcasting means, so they're doing everything they can to squash free speech. So those of you who are online with us, please endure, and It's going to be low budget as far as the way it looks and sounds, but we need you to understand. And the reality of this, Caleb, our episode, we prepped that 1984 is upon us. And the articles that we're bringing you today are proving it. And even the very fact that we're going through this garbage right now proves that we're in this. So with that, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Church and State Christian Political Talk Show. We cannot stream until we have about 1,000 subscribers. We have 250. We're really pushing on that. Also, our podcast. Look for our podcast because they may shut this down. I'm being honest. They may shut us down to where we can't even have any stream. So for you to stay in touch with us, obviously those who are on the radio right now, you'll be able to hear us through ACN, through American Christian Network. But those of you who follow us all over the world and stream in with us on Facebook, you may be unable to find us. So the way to find us is subscribe to our Church and State podcast. Because Caleb, I don't know how much longer we're going to have on Facebook.
Yeah, we're really the victim of our own success. Just suddenly, we've been doing this for about 3 years now with Church and State. But just suddenly, we broke through that glass ceiling and we really started catching the attention of a lot of people through social media. But it appears that Facebook is now attempting to suppress us. And why are they suppressing truth? What don't they want you to know? That is the question that you need to be asking yourself. Because for us, we are always reporting on the truth. And the left, as you'll be able to see in these stories, is really coming down hard on us, those that love the truth. So let's get into the stories here, Gabe, as we're doing quite a unique show for us. And in fact, if you want to continue to play that music, I don't mind because it's actually pretty appropriate.
Obviously, those of you on Facebook aren't going to be able to hear it. Those of you on the radio will be able to hear it. We'll be able to hear it. But yeah, there's ominous music going on. For those of you who aren't listening or who are listening on Facebook, they're not going to be able to hear it, but that's all right.
Gotcha. All right. So getting into the stories here, this one's coming from Technocracy News. Now, Technocracy News with Patrick Wood is a phenomenal website. Patrick Wood is an incredible individual here. But India is inventing an all-camera network to track every physical movement here. Now, technocratic engineers are advancing surveillance technology at breakneck speeds. India's latest invention can co-opt thousands of cameras to track individuals or vehicles in real time as they move about. This type of surveillance is something that George Orwell's 1984 could only dream of. You remember that the hero, I guess if you want to call him that, in 1984, he had a little tiny spot in his apartment that he could wedge himself into to where the cameras would not see him.
Yeah.
And that was freedom for him. That was liberty for him.
Wow. We're living this right now.
The future of the total police state just got a whole lot bleaker. This is thanks to the Indian Institute of Science. These researchers have figured out a way to turn a vast network of CCTV cameras into one massive surveillance network, and they can specifically target a vehicle or a person. And the way that they're doing this is they can actually predict cars' movements or people's movements, and they can predict which direction they're going to be traveling so that they can actually tie into the next camera, and they can completely monitor an individual as they're going through the city. And you have to remember, India is one of the most populated countries in the world. I think it is the most populated country in the world. And they can track an individual throughout the entire city. This is terrifying that they have accomplished this goal. And this is the model for the New World Order. This is exactly what they want, not just in India, but throughout the world. This is coming to the United States, and we've got to be ready to fight against this technocracy.
Yeah, the article says, do not be fooled by IISC's claims that law enforcement will only use Avshank to track stolen vehicles or missing persons. How many times have we heard that? Using technology for the good. Okay. History was shown how police have used smart AI to track and identify people at Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter protests, and I know for sure we have a new term called domestic violent extremists. So DVEs are the new term. Somebody who is a Trump supporter, who is even just unhappy with the results of the election. Doesn't even mean you actually believe the election was stolen. If you are unhappy with the result of the election, you are considered a DVE on the national registry, which they, as far as, I don't know how they have that and whether you're a Facebook supporter or what, but you are considered a DVE, which is a domestic violent extremist. So my guess is you who came out to the Capitol, your face was every image was taken of you. They're going to be
They're
using
doing
this.
it everywhere. People like you and I, Gabe, a radio show, you and I have made the list. And the reality is this.
We don't
I've
care.
heard that there are a number of people out there who believe in what's called gray man theory, where you can hide who you really are, that you don't have to necessarily pick sides, you can wait, and then come out and defend liberty, perhaps. The reality is this: you cannot hide from this. It would be better for you to come out into the open, to actually join with us and to actually fight against the oppression that is occurring in these United States. Do you love your country enough to actually do that? Do you value your own liberty or your children's liberty that much to actually get out there and do that? To actually show the New World Order, the globalists, the elitists, the communists, that no, I'm willing to fight for this country, for this concept of liberty. That's what we need to be doing right now. No hiding.
There's no gray.
Don't go
now.
gray.
That's good.
Be white or black, right? Black or white. That is what we're dealing with right now. You cannot be gray in this type of situation. Proving that, Forbes Media. Do you remember, Gabe, when Forbes Media used to be a good thing? When it was actually conservative.
Yeah, I also remember when Newsmax was good. Last night I watched Newsmax completely destroy Mike Lindell and literally talk over Mike Lindell when he even mentioned the machines that he saw and has proof of. We know for sure Mike Lindell has a 3-hour documentary where he's going to be going over this. I'm praying that we can actually interview him on Church Estate before it gets too crazy, but he's got a 3-hour documentary that he was going to talk about on Newsmax, and they literally spoke over him, shut him down. So those of you who follow Newsmax, I'm just letting you know, man, they're part of this system as well.
Absolutely. All right, but Forbes was actually sold, and that's the problem. Steve Forbes is actually a little bit ashamed of the organization that still bears his name. But Forbes Media is adopting a truth reckoning against ex-Trump staffers. So here it comes. If you're an individual that was a Trump supporter or worked in the Trump administration or campaign, you are going to in fact be blacklisted. Now this is an independent review. William Baumgarth, an associate professor of political science at Fordham University, said the direction progressivism is taking seems to involve taking Orwell's 1984 not as a warning but as a handbook. Now 1984 was never intended to be an instruction manual. It was a warning. It was an absolute warning. But the future totalitarian state in Orwell's classic novel, the mere expression of an opinion not approved by the governing authorities, was a crime. It was a thought crime. And the punishment for that thought crime was death. Now, we're not there yet. But look how quickly things can progress that way.
Yeah.
You look at what occurred in France. And the Robespierre was he was anti-death penalty initially. And then what occurred? They were just beheading people. They were just picking on individuals. Your crime? You were an enemy of their state that they had created. That is the possibility here for the United States. That is the warning. And it starts slowly. It starts with targeting individuals that pushed back against the elitist, back against the state. That is what we're dealing with here.
It says in the article, Steve Forbes, who once ran for business, does not agree with the current direction of the magazine, which was launched by his grandfather, B.C. Forbes, and continued by his father, Malcolm Forbes. Steve Forbes is a conservative who literally endorsed Trump in both of his presidential campaigns of 2016 and 2020. So we see how even Steve Forbes can't control the direction of his own company. So,
but Randall Lane is the chief content officer for Forbes now, and he announced a few days ago that Forbes Media was planning on holding those who lied for Trump accountable.
wow.
His term, truth reckoning. Now that ministry of truth is really coming into play here, isn't it?
Right.
And we're going to have an article to prove that at the end of the episode here.
Explain the ministry of truth. A lot of people haven't read the book 1984, so you need to. What is that, Caleb?
The ministry of truth was the government's answer to ensuring that the people bought onto the official lie. That was their entire duty, was to ensure that whatever the government said was the truth. And if the bureaucracy ever contradicted itself, it was scrubbed. And whatever had now been said was now the new truth, the absolute truth. You could never go back. You could never go against that truth until the government decided that that truth was no longer actually truthful. and then they invented a new one.
Once again, for those of you who are online with us, just reminding those who have jumped in, we have a healthy amount who weren't here at the beginning. So the reason why we are right now using, we don't have a correct connection audio-wise, and we also, our video is all messed up. Facebook has now shut down our streaming platform to where right now the only way we can actually get online is with an actual iPad or an iPhone, and I don't even know how long that's going to work, because it was we got shut down like 3 different times even using that. So once again, reminder to you, subscribe to our podcast on YouTube. I'm going to say it again, please. Church and State Christian Political Talk Show. Subscribe to that on YouTube. Also, find our podcast on Spotify, iTunes Music. Our podcast is also on Anchor. It's called Church and State Podcast, and you'll easily be able to find us.
And actually fight back against this before you too become an unperson. That's what these individuals are being targeted in the Trump administration, of becoming unpersons, where they're not able to ever find a lucrative job. They're going after Sarah Huckabee Sanders. They're going after Sean Spicer. They want to make sure that these individuals are never allowed to actually be productive in this new world order. Now, who are the true domestic terrorists? Because that's the narrative. That's the narrative that we are currently fighting against. That anyone who supports Trump, anyone who loves liberty, the Constitution, libertarians even, are in fact domestic violence extremists. That they are capable of engaging in terrorist activities that could damage this precious country. But who in fact are the real domestic terrorists? And I would submit to you that the real domestic terrorists in this nation have always been the left. But now that the left controls the administration, the mainstream media, big tech, everywhere you turn, the left is in control. And so now you will only find enemies to the right. They are projecting upon us their actual activities. When you look at Antifa and BLM and their summer of love, the reality is multiple deaths, multiple injuries. They estimate $1 to $2 billion worth of damage on countries throughout the United States. We have proof, we have concrete proof coming from the John Birch Society and the New American that there were radical Antifa activists at the January 6th event at the Capitol building. That there were patriots that were actually identifying these individuals on record, saying that they found individuals who were dressed like Trump supporters, but that they were talking about trying to make these individuals look bad so they could use that narrative that never let a good crisis go to waste. It was COVID before, now it's domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism is what they're going to use to implement their plans. And all they need is a wind-up toy. All they need is some type of event. Whether real or contrived, they can take that event and they can start coming after individuals. Patrick Buchanan wrote a fantastic article for the New American, says, who are the true domestic terrorists? And in this, he goes all the way back to the 60s, where he showcases so many different events, bombings, killings, that were all because of the radical left's agenda. It was never conservatives that were rioting in the streets or blowing themselves up, attempting to make bombs.
No, yeah, the level of hypocrisy is ridiculous. You've seen it. You saw the news reporters with fires in the background, dumpsters on fire, mostly peaceful protests all year long, 2020. We were forced to watch through the news what was lauded as a democratic right of the people to protest. But yet when at the Capitol, even though I don't agree with it, the level there was considered terrorism. It was never considered protest. Why, Caleb? Because they're targeting civil Americans. People who wear MAGA hats have now been labeled as terrorists. Okay? The level back in the day was racism was connected. Now it's terror.
But the vast majority of criminals who rob and loot and shoot and kill other fellow Americans, they're not wearing MAGA hats. They're not wearing Gadsden gear. They're radical leftists. The anarchy of 2020 has only continued into 2021. Shootings in Los Angeles have actually risen by 742% just in the year of 2021. In fact, that was actually the first 2 weeks of the year. In Oakland, homicides were up 500% and shootings up 126% through January 17th. In New York, murders were up 42% and shooting victims up 15% through January 17th.
And you listed some, like, three major, very leftist, with leftist policies that do not allow people to open carry. You may not possess firearms. These are very, very harsh cities when it comes to gun control. Would you not say that's true?
Absolutely. These are cities that have been run by the Democrats for a very long time. And everywhere you look, whether it be Detroit, Portland, Seattle, New York, all of these metropolises that have been run by the Democrats are literally dying. The people are dying. The infrastructure is crumbling. That's what the left will bring to the United States.
And the Ministry of Truth has done a very good job in New York, Oakland, San Francisco, these places, to get people to believe that what they are doing is working. But in the background, there is this, like, black mold. You ever heard of black mold in the home, Caleb? It just
Yes.
grows in the walls. You don't even know it's there until eventually you start coughing and hacking, and you can't live in the house. In the house, there's only one thing you can do: demolish it or gut it to the absolute bones. That's where America is slowly creeping right now. Let's keep going.
Last article that we're going to discuss on today's show.
This is the scary one.
This is coming from the New American. The New York Times calls for Biden to create a truth commission and appoint a reality czar.
A reality czar.
This is straight out of 1984, Dave.
My stomach dropped when you told me this. My stomach is still upset. And then on top of it, I come in and I try to connect on the studio camera and it won't let me connect. They are ramping up, Caleb. It is not just simple small chess moves anymore. It is speed chess. They are flying right now.
They are, and that's why this message is so important. Even with the poor quality of the recording, we need this to be shared everywhere. People need to be subjected to this message. They need to learn the truth here. Now, this is from Kevin Roose. He's a technology columnist for the New York Times. He says this: the ideologues for the president to address what he calls the hoaxes, lies, and collective delusions of some Americans by creating a truth commission and appointing a reality czar to his administration. It's in the name of national unity, according to this guy. How do you unite a country in which millions of people have chosen to create their own version of reality? He laments. I've spent the last several years reporting on our national reality crisis, Roose wrote. I worry that unless the Biden administration treats conspiracy theories and disinformation as the urgent threats our parallel universes will only drift further apart, and the potential for violent unrest and civic dysfunction will only grow.
Catch this. Keep reading.
In search of an answer, Roose consulted his own hand-picked experts to explore a solution to this dire situation in which people have their own opinions. It's cliche to say that the solutions Roose experts come up with are Orwellian, but it's also quite true. They called for the president to create a truth commission. This is similar to the 9/11 commission, whose job would be to do an in-depth search of the causes, planning, and execution of the so-called siege that took place at the Capitol on January 6th. They say there must be accountability for these actions, and their fear is that we will get distracted as a society and focus too much on giving voice to the fringe groups that come out in droves for Trump.
So literally it's not going to be Snopes anymore where we're like being deceived. You could, back in the day, go to Snopes and say, hey, is that true? Did so-and-so really? And you and I knew that Snopes was poisoned a long time ago. We've investigated and reported on that numerous times. So those truth websites, and now we have every single day on our Facebook feeds, no, that is censored. You cannot post that. That's not truth. That's not truth. It's going to move to where we literally have a czar of truth. You know, they've had economic czars. They've had basically transportation czars. They've had all these. Caleb and I hate these words, the czar word anyway, because what was Rahm Emanuel? What was his job? He was I forget his czarship, but every one of these czars, whether it's Kerry or whoever, they've always been encroaching more on our liberties. Now we're literally going to have a truth czar.
Now, this Truth Commission should also meet regularly with big tech platforms such as Google, Twitter, Facebook, to assist those entities with policing of their platforms. He also suggests that the platforms receive safe harbor exemptions from the federal government, which would allow the tech sector to share data with the government without breaking any privacy laws, of course, to keep us in check. He says we must open the hood on social media so that civil rights lawyers and real watchdog organizations can investigate human rights abuses enabled or amplified by technology. He says
Wow. I got to hear that again. We must open the hood on social media so that civil rights lawyers and real watchdog organizations can investigate human rights abuses enabled or amplified by technology, which is what you have here, streaming. So when they make statements like opening the hood on social media, that's FBI investigation. That's CIA, or not, probably not CIA, but I'm talking, they're going to get into the grill of people who are posting, talking, saying, printing, anything against the state.
He also claims that there needs to be this reality czar, and this reality czar would be responsible for centralizing the federal government's response to disinformation and domestic extremism. The reality czar would hold wide discretion across federal agencies to determine what is reality and what is conspiracy. Literally determining the entire nation's reality.
Let me read this. Such a truth commission would need to carefully be careful who they label as domestic terrorists. Some are just cranks that bear watching. Okay, a paranoid retiree who spends all day reading QAnon forums isn't the same as an armed militia leader, and we should delineate one from another. Rose pointed out, but both are problems, of course. But the armed militia is a more immediate problem.
And of course, they're going to have to deal with that more immediate problem. People like Gabe and I, people like you who are watching this show, who are sharing this show, you are being targeted for your truth to be suppressed.
Don't go back to the gray, Caleb. I want you to keep re-saying that. We have to just come out of the darkness and not be afraid of truth.
You will win. As lovers of liberty, as pursuers of the truth, as Christian patriots, you will win. We are guaranteed that. Now is the time to come out into the streets, to come out into the light, and to say, no, we will fight you. Church and State is brought in part by Covenant Church. Always remember, the tree of liberty is most likely a birch. And with that, Church and State is out.
God bless. Just reestablishing with everyone who's on Facebook Live. It's not our desire to run Facebook off of an iPad. Want to remind you, please go to YouTube, subscribe. We're going to try to keep streaming on Facebook. I don't know how much longer we have on this. Caleb and I are also talking about building our own server where we're streaming from our own server. So please be praying. I don't know what's going on as far as why Facebook is doing this. Well, I do know why, as you know why. So thank you so much. Your prayers are appreciated. We really, really value you guys lifting us up in prayer and praying that God would help us move quickly to counter whatever they're trying to do to us.
And I just want to reiterate, even with the poor quality, share this video everywhere that you can, because this message needs to get out, because they are suppressing truth.
God bless.